Nullikai is a 501c3 that provides entrepreneurship training and opportunities to Hawaii high school students throughout the state. Typically, we convene like one intensive in-person summer camp every year between sort of 20, 28 students. Last year, we did 2 intensive camps, one on Hawaii Island, the other one on Oahu, in collaboration with Kamehameha schools. And this year, we did our first virtual camp for 24 high school students and just minted, I think, our 156th alumni. So we are really interested in terms of what we're looking for. We're always looking for new opportunities to network with educational organizations, schools, and so forth that are interested in bringing entrepreneurship into the classroom, be it virtual or physical, as well as opportunities for our alumni to act as entrepreneurs in local business. So if those are things that are of interest to you, please reach out to me. I'll pop my contact info in the chat after I'm done talking. But today, I'm here to talk about sort of a data-driven quantitative approach to business. I know that sounds super dry. I'm going to make it really interesting, I promise. Khaleesi, I know, is interested in how this applies to customer acquisition. So I'm going to make sure that I'm bringing in different use cases and scenarios and making this concrete. Before I kind of dive into it with the slide deck, though, I want to quickly ask, who here, with a show of hands, would consider their business to be data-driven? Okay, so fair. Okay, kind of a little bit. Okay, would you, fair number, some people sort of on the fence. Would you say that your business is driven by feedback from your customers or from the market generally? Okay, all right. Even we're gonna go from number 2 to number 1 here. This is a intervention, but it's going to be a pleasant one. Great. Is there anyone here whose business is run entirely based on their prophetic vision and clairvoyant understanding and anticipation of customer desires? Is there anyone who would say that? Because that's going to make my life rough. Okay, Jim, maybe. All right. That's a very different approach. I wish I could do that. It never works out for me. We'll do what humans can do. All right. So if you want to see my face, you can use the side-by-side mode in the view modes drop-down. If you don't want to see my face, you can not do that. It works either way. But let's dive right in. So if you look at modern sort of business methodologies, ways of running businesses, pretty much everyone's landed on the same thing, which is that running a business or an organization is this sort of iterative cycle of building something, seeing how customers, the market, your audience responds to it, learning from that, using that to make a next sort of revision to your product or service offering, trying that out, trying to amplify good results, trying to find new ways to tackle the problem or the opportunity when you don't get a good result. So, we all envision sort of business these days as being this constant sort of feedback directed cycle. And we're always getting feedback from our customers when they're interacting with our products, when we're telling them about our products, and they're either choosing to take them, use them, they choose to sign up, if they choose not to. All of that is feedback, and we can kind of see that feedback as being sort of in 2 different categories: qualitative feedback and quantitative feedback. So qualitative feedback, these are the textural things that we get when we talk to our potential customers, users, audience. These are the things they tell us. They tell us that they like our product for this reason, or they're looking for these attributes, or we compare favorably in these ways and not these other ways, and that their customers are most receptive to a certain kind of way of talking about it, or they're most interested in a certain presentation of your service or product when it appears in a social network or something like that. That's sort of the qualitative feedback. That tells you a lot about how you should write your marketing copy. It tells you a lot about how you should pick your features for your product. But there's another kind of feedback, and that is quantitative feedback. This is where we get into the data-driven side of things. And this shows us where we should focus those efforts. When we get that feedback from our customers, where is that insight best applied? Is it at this part of the pipeline? Is it at this part? Is it, how well is one thing working versus another? If you have time that you're investing in your product, which feature which aspect of it should you be more invested in versus another. Making comparisons like that really helps to have the numbers. So that's quantitative feedback. And we're going to talk about all about how to get that and what that means. So I'm going to introduce one piece of terminology. I apologize for all terminology that I introduced, but this one is kind of important. And this is the concept of a metric. And a metric is just a measurement. It's just a quantitative measurement of something that you have marked as being important to your business. And these exist at different levels. There are very high level ones that I'm going to call success metrics. And I'll have another worse name for them later. And then there's some lower level metrics that look at how your audience is directly interacting with what you're doing and responding to it. So let's start high level. So success metrics are things that measure your company's contribution to solving the problem or capturing an opportunity. So this works for if you're a nonprofit or a for-profit. What's the extent to which you are addressing the problem you set out to address or capture the market opportunity that you have discovered? We measure these with success metrics, and depending on what industry we're in, who we're working with, we may have very, very different ways of measuring our success at this level. So I was early at Twitch. I ran the mobile department. We grew the mobile user base of Twitch from tens of thousands to tens of millions over the course of just about 3-4 years. And we were really concerned about these numbers, these metrics. The big one there is 355 billion minutes watched. The minutes watched metric was really important to us because it's strongly tied to things like our revenue, because we were running ads during that time. And it's a way for us to compare ourselves and our performance to our competitors, namely to YouTube. So they judge themselves by that number and advertise that number. We judge ourselves and advertise by that number. So this is one of the real benefits that you get from having high-level metrics, is that you can look at how people who are in your same industry or in your same field are performing, compare them to yourself and figure out, who do I have to learn from? What are they doing that's so right? Or what am I doing that's so right that my number is so different than their number? So for high-level comparisons and figuring out where you should be looking for ideas, metrics are really important. And it's not just, as I said, for-profits that need this. Nonprofits and benefit corporations, other ones, have other metrics that they pull out that may be less directly tied to revenue, but they're strongly tied to their social or environmental commitments. For instance, Patagonia, they're a well-known sort of benefit corp. They put together annual reports where they sort of hold themselves accountable for things that you wouldn't necessarily see other companies doing. So they talk about having repaired 70,337 garments that year, because they're really about reducing environmental impact of operations by making their products last longer. It's a virtue, or like a company commitment that they've made. So you'll see metrics like that as well. So it's really what matters to your business or your organization. What is your contribution to the problem you're trying to solve? And what is your success or the degree to which you attain success addressing that opportunity that you've identified? Those are the things you want those high-level metrics to cover. But there's some drawbacks to this, and that is that if you say, okay, well, I'm doing online sales, a major metric of mine is like, how many dollars in sales did I do this year? Or on a smaller, sort of shorter time frame. And if that number is low, obviously you want it to be higher, but there is nothing about that number being low that tells you anything about how to make it higher. So these are sometimes also called, the success metrics are sometimes also called vanity metrics, because they're really good for bragging about how well you're doing, if they are good numbers. And as I said, they're very good for comparison, figuring out where you should look for people who are having more success in the specific areas you're concerned with. But they're very hard to make business decisions based on. You know that that number isn't right, that it should be higher, that it needs to be higher for you to be successful. But it doesn't necessarily give you ideas for what to do. So we really want to look at some kind of smaller scale numbers, things closer to what's happening actually at the level of a customer engaging with our product or service. And I like to call these growth metrics, because you can engineer growth with them. So I'm going to introduce a common kitchen slash sort of automotive repair gadget, and that is the funnel. This funnel that we use when we talk about sort of data-driven business is a sideways funnel. And on the left side, we have sort of where we're taking in our customers, our audience. And on the right side, we have some sort of significant action that we want them to take. Now, I'm going to diagram in these slides as sort of e-commerce sales flow, but this also completely applies to a user acquisition flow where we're advertising on large, social media platforms, for instance, on the left, and trying to get people through a series of decisions that results in them becoming our user or our customer, and then ultimately we can make other funnels for decisions that happen after that. But you want to start out with where you're meeting your customer, and you have to meet them where they are. And then on the right side, some really significant decision that you need them to make, some action you need them to take, which is essential to your business. So as I said, we're gonna start by diagramming e-commerce because it's super straightforward. So in our funnel and this sort of flow of decisions, there are these individual decision points that we can identify. People who see our ad on Facebook or Instagram are going to tap on a link to our website. They're going to browse that website, find a product. They're going to tap on that. They're going to view the product listing. They're going to tap buy, and then they're going to go through some sort of checkout flow. If they complete that, we've made a sale. They've become a customer, right? That we've gotten the result that we want. But each one of these is sort of a customer decision that's made. And at each one of these, we can experience attrition. People can fall out of this flow. They can decide, I'm not interested in this website. I'm not interested in this product. I started the checkout flow, but you know what? I don't like the payment options. I'm not going to complete this. I'm going to back out. And that's why the funnel narrows. And what we can do is assign metrics to each of these little decision points. And we can measure them and see how people are traversing this funnel, this flow that we need them to traverse in order to have the success that we're looking for, the business sort of outcome we're looking for. So here's an example. We run 20,000, impression ad campaign. And 1% of those people who see the ad end up tapping the link on the website. It's not uncommon to click through. So we get 200 that hit the website. Of that, 10% of those people browse and tap on a product on our website. Now we're down to 20 people from that 20,000 impressions. 25% of those then tap buy. Now we're down to 5 people. And then we lose somebody somewhere in the checkout process, but we get 80% of them through. So we made 4 sales as a result of this. Now, having instrumented this flow, which is to say, having been able to measure each of these points and then look at the percentages, I'm going to see some opportunities here to optimize and try to make things work better. And I look at that 1% of people who tap the link to the website, and I think, if I could just get from 1% to 2%, I would double the number of sales that come through this pipe. Because if they get caught up in that beginning, they're not going to come through to the end. So the changes you make in the beginning, they have a huge effect throughout the rest of this funnel. So let's say I redo that ad. I get somebody professional to come in and make it more attractive, make it more appealing, make the copy better, right? Now with my new ad, I go from just 1% to 2%, but now I've got 400 people instead of 200 people tapping the link to the website. Then I've got 40 people tapping on the product, 10% or 25% of those, or 10 tap buy. We end up with 8 people making it all the way through the checkout. Now we've doubled our sales. That's 8 sales. That's 2x. Totally worth our investment of time, right? But maybe we find trying to go from 1% to 2%, even though that sounds super simple, to be hard. Well, all we have to do is get a similar improvement in any of these other metrics, any of these other decision points. We can create the same result. So let's say that we change the layout of the page to better present the products. If we can get 20% of people rather than 10% of people who get to the web page to tap on a product, we've got the same result. We double it there, we get double on the other side of the funnel. So that's also 8 sales. So this is showing us where we should invest our effort. This allows us to see what we should be doing. Now we take all that qualitative feedback, the things customers have been telling us about what they love us, about our company, we take that and we use that in this area. They tell us they love these things about our tea company. We put that stuff first on the website to test the theory that this will better connect with people because this is what they've been telling us they love. And sure enough, you see the numbers confirm it, and then you get the business result on the other side. So what if you do that? You make that new page and it's working great for a month, but then the next month goes back down to only 10% tapping on a product on the website. And you're like, okay, I was doing 8 sales before and I'm on 4. What happened? And so the challenge here is, why did this happen? I thought, it seemed like, when redoing the site was a good thing, I immediately saw this improvement, then it went away. Well, while we're running our business, the rest of the world is doing things, and tastes are changing, and there are trends, and there's seasonality, and there are, epic pandemics and other things that take place that greatly affect the business conditions and affect our business. And it's not clear. It's very hard to separate the way we've been running things in this sort of diagram, our own efforts and reworking our website versus what's going on generally in the world that might be influencing our business. So there's a solution for that, and it's called split testing. This is also called cohort analysis. And that is basically to take a page from the scientific method and say, well, we need to run a real controlled experiment. So instead of just changing the page, we have half the people who go to the website see the old version of the web page. We have half of them go to the new version. And the higher tiers of things like Wix and Squarespace have this sort of functionality built in as a in-B there. But what this will allow us to do is all these people coming through randomly, they're being assigned into these different treatment groups. And so we get to see sort of with more scientific rigor and clarity what the real effect of that is, regardless of what's going on sort of in the background. So if we have half the people see the old page, half see the new, now we can look down the bottom. We're seeing 20% of people who are in group B with the new experimental page are, basically twice as many of those are tapping through to product. It's clear that there's an impact of the new design of the website over the old design. And then once we know that, we say, okay, we have learned something, this is important, we can keep it that way. And if the sales fluctuate without us doing anything, it's easier to say that's attributable to outside business conditions we need to understand, but we know that we tested this and it worked much better. Okay, so that's split testing. So the real key here, and this is sort of coming toward the end, the real important thing to do here is to find some way to connect the end of your funnel to the front of your funnel, which is to say, find ways to convert successful actions taken at the end into more people coming into the front of the funnel. So if you get a sale as a result of people coming through this flow, you take some of that money, you put it back into advertisement, that gets more people coming in, and then you're keeping the funnel filled. That will, if you can get one person, in for each person out, you sustain the business. But an interesting thing happens if you get 2 people into the front of the funnel for every 1 person that comes out. So if you, for instance, you'll see this on lots of websites, they'll have things for you to refer friends, to refer other people who will be interested, right? The idea behind that is if I can get 2 people, so let's say this is a user acquisition flow, and we say, hey, thanks for joining the app. To make this more meaningful, invite 2 of your friends to join you on here and you'll get a better experience. If you can get 2 people to join for every 1, that means you have 1 person come in, 2 come out. When those 2 come in, 4 come out the other side. When those 4 come in, another 8 come in out the other side. And what you've created is this exponential growth. And this is the exponential growth that VCs and people are looking for. And this is essentially how you produce it, by creating this effect where every time you get somebody through this essential business flow, you're actually putting more people into the funnel. If you can engineer that, if you can make the business behind that work, then you have an exponential, you have a business with exponential growth. You know, you've nailed it. So that is the goal. Typically with this, it is very mathy, but this is how you engineer growth of that kind. So I used a word before, instrumentation. That word instrumentation means just how you measure people taking these decisions when they're going through your webpage and your social media presence and so on and so forth. I can share this deck somehow, maybe. After this, Jason's nodding. I assume there's some way I can share this deck. But for websites and apps, Google Analytics is sort of the go-to. It is free, and they do a good job of making sure that things are legal in all the territories. When on your social media side, you want to enable your Instagram insights, you want to enable your analytics on Twitter. These things are disabled by default, but enabling them will allow you to find out how effective your social media campaigns are at generating traffic and conversion to these later stages in your business pipe. If you're on some place and it doesn't allow you to directly access analytics data, count your views, likes, and shares yourself. And for things where there's more of a disconnect between what your customer sees and where they end up, like if you're doing physical marketing, you've got like posters up, put in special links to landing pages that are unique for that particular advertising campaign, so you can see how well it's performing by going into your analytics and saying, oh, this is how many people are coming up on that, and this is how much I invested in those posters, for instance, and be able to assess the value of your physical marketing or certain kinds of email marketing that are less attached to these other analytics flows. But there are tutorials for this out the wazoo online, and they're easy to find. I like to have a cautionary note here. People who get super into this can sometimes forget that they had another product that was actually solving a problem or addressing a need, or and basically just decide, you know what, the data is so good, let's just make the data the product. If you bought a TV recently and you're wondering, how do they make these things so cheap? And you see those doorbusters sales, well, TCL and other companies like that, the reason why like the smart TVs are cheaper than the dumb TVs is because they take some of your viewing data and then sell that. So it's not just of interest to them for improving the product, but it's a product in and of itself. And it's certainly, Facebook with how they've handled their advertisement has been accused of similar things, and it's a big complicated issue, but it's good to be mindful of your data to make sure that you're handling it in a way which is responsible, that you're using it to make decisions that are meaningful for your customer, and avoid having it displace your product if you like your product and your customers like your product. That's all for me. I can answer questions if people have them. I will get rid of my share here. Eva's got a finger up.
Okay, so I'll just pipe in, or are you gonna take us? I can go?
Go. You go, right?
Okay. Yeah, so Austin, question, a few things, is it was great to hear about that split testing. I never had heard of that before. And so just to give you a quick example, is that my website have had for a very long time. It's not been updated, but people tell me they love it and whatnot. But so now I'm in the process of trying to update it so it's more mobile friendly. And I realized that just from my analog side that that once I switch over, I probably will get many more hits and whatnot. But I'm very curious about this split testing that you're talking about. And maybe if you could just explain that a little bit, or if you have a go-to where I could learn a little bit more about that. I am in the midst, like I said, of switching over, but it's still a long haul. That was one question I had. And then if you could also just address this world of virtual marketing. So all of us here have businesses, and yes, we deal with the internet and websites and whatnot, But I really am not a social media, person. So I always go into it with, not a lot of enthusiasm. I would like to create more, but I'm more into manufacturing. And so over the past year, and especially during this time, talking to people involved in internet marketing, is that why is it that the public and businesses that are, quote, in manufacturing and do physical marketing, um, is there a community of people that are interested in partnering up in doing the virtual marketing without it just costing the manufacturer an arm and a leg? So in the sense of whether you have an agent, in the old days, you would give them a percentage of your sales. These days, we would like to find and partner with someone in virtual that is interested in doing those things in that manner. So those are two areas that I hope you can address. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the questions. So split testing is a very powerful tool. It's also called A/B testing. I think it's underused by people who are outside of industry. It should be used in all cases. You have this assumption that when I redo the site, it's going to work better for people on mobile and it's going to convert better and there are going to be more sales. That's an assumption you really, really want to test. And you also want to understand what the different levers are that affect the sort of efficacy or the success of your website in getting people who visit to buy. What are those factors? Is it if we lead with a photo, does that do better? If we put the buy button here versus here, does that do better? If we describe the product in this way, does that do better with this particular audience? Like there's so many questions there that you really, really want to have answers to. Split testing is a way to try to get answers to those questions. How you do it depends on what platform you're using. So if someone is coding your website from scratch, there are JavaScript frameworks and backend frameworks that can be used to do it, and you can ask them about it. If you're using WordPress, there are going to be plugins that will do this and will send information back to Google Analytics, which is very easy to plug into pretty much anything. You just look for whatever is hosting you, and Google Analytics will tell you how to hook it up. But plugins for these things will provide information to Google Analytics that allow you to see the results of the split. And you can have old version and new version of site info up at the same time, and you can look at it by the device people are using, and you can answer that question of, does the new website actually result in more sales from people who are coming from mobile? You will have an answer that will be definitive. So that's a super valuable thing. Ultimately, what startups are doing is gaining the knowledge to find their customer and deliver what they want to them. And this is what enables you to do that. So if you're on Wix or Squarespace or something like that, their higher tiers have A/B testing built in. It is also tied in directly with their built-in analytics. So it just depends on the platform you're on, but I would highly recommend it. Question number 2. There are lots of people out there who advertise their services as social media marketers, including ones sort of locally. Ian Hatch at AS Design Services in Hilo, he's been doing social media marketing as a service to companies local and otherwise for some time. You'll find that it's not necessarily that expensive. What's great about online advertising is the ability to target very narrowly. So you can find people who are in a specific area who are interested in tea and only show the ads to them. And so you end up spending less than you would on a less directed campaign, because you're only paying to show the advertisement to people who are very likely to be interested. So it's going to convert a lot better. And that's why Facebook is a giant, is because they know enough about people that they can sell very effective advertisement. So that could be, I think that could be a game changer for you, but there are a lot of people who will provide their social media marketing services for a fair amount. You want to find, I guess, people who are vetted to a certain extent. I'm sure there are people in this community who have worked with some people on that locally, and probably some people on here have done a fair bit of social media marketing themselves.
So does that world ever offer to the manufacturers or businesses to do it by percent versus upfront costs, so that you are, in a sense, like a true partner?
Yeah, to do it sort of on a commission basis rather than that can be negotiated. it's more frequently a sort of a mix of those two. It's usually not all one or all the other, but yeah, there are definitely ones that are open to that. I think the better ones will be confident that they can get some sales to convert through that pipeline and take a percentage through that on the other side.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Anybody else?
Yeah, I had a question. That was great, Austin. In your final example or description of how you could actually achieve exponential growth by doubling the number of clients that made it to the final step, you said your example was maybe like invite your friends or something like that. Do you have any more kind of like a structural concept than that? You know, that's not just friends, but something by design that gets that result. You know, everybody wants exponential growth, right?
Right, everyone wants exponential growth. Well, I mean, what I meant by sort of figure out what it means in a business sense for you to connect the back of the funnel and the front is that, okay, how much profit are you making on this sale? And then of that profit, how much of that can you bear to reinvest in advertisement? And then of that advertisement, how effective can you make that advertisement such that you can drive through those percentages, that number of sales based on just that sale? If your advertisement is effective enough and efficient enough in terms of how much you're paying versus the conversion that you get, and your margins are good enough that you can get enough to pay for a fair amount of advertisement as a result of a transaction, that will do that. I give the example of, sign up, give us the emails of two of your friends and we can get them on board and we'll give you some sort of perk or something like that. I give that example because it's common for acquisition first companies rather than revenue first companies. They don't really have, they're not making money. They want to get a lot of people into one place and then figure out how to monetize them. Or they're nonprofits and they're doing something like a beach cleanup. And so the end of that is like you signing up for some work day, and they want you to bring in your friends and you can use that to drive more people through and to get more people signed up. So there are different approaches depending on how your business is trying to grow. And I wish I could provide an even higher level understanding of exactly how you link those things together apart from the sales and sort of marketing approach, that sort of loop, and the sort of viral acquisition loop. I think those are both examples. I think there probably is a higher level sort of understanding of how you can connect them. But I mean, I've definitely seen positive feedback cycles that you can create basically as a result of this, where, on the Twitch app, for instance, we're looking at, well, people who have more subscriptions, who subscribe to more channels, watch more video, and then people watch more video also have more subscriptions. So if we can, encourage people to subscribe to more channels, then they end up watching more, they end up finding out about more things, and then they go through this themselves, and you would see their personal viewership, for instance, grow. You see them make that decision more at the end of the pipe. That's another example. I don't know if it's of the level that gives it like broad applicability, but conceptually, I hope that is helpful.
So basically, you need to know your customers so you know how to attract the right customers, and you have to continue to invest in your funnel so that you're getting more customers that way as well.
Yes,
right?
Drive the funnel, live and die by the funnel.
So,
and it really is about knowledge. It's about understanding your customer, right? Every time you run an A/B test, you understand something important about them. This is what really appeals to them. I'm going to do more of that. And then you see, this build.
And the other thing is you better have a referral program for your business, right? People forget that all the time, but it's as simple as asking people, because trust me, nobody's going to come up to you and say, oh, can I refer people to you? No, you got to ask them, like, and you don't ask them, do you know anybody? Because that's a yes or no answer. You ask them, who do you know that would, right? That's the way to ask for referrals. So the other thing I wanted to have you comment on, Austin, is on the A/B testing, you can't make too many changes at once, right? You have to test one variable.
So the fewer things you test at once, I think the better sort of, explanatory power those conclusions you draw have. You will, however, see, and I certainly have been in businesses where each individual is in 50 or more A/B tests simultaneously. And the experience that any particular user is getting may be unique from any other user that's on the platform. I think people assume when they're using apps like Uber and Facebook and things like that, that the experience they have is essentially the same as what their friend has. That's actually not the case, because you're all sort of enrolled in 50 experiments at once. And the hope is that, none of them really horribly interfere with the other ones, but that is not always the case. The more you add on, the less significant the results you get from any one of those is going to be due to weird effects. If you have a super strong effect in one A/B test where it's like, 90% of people get this treatment, never use the app again. Well, it's going to have an impact. And so data scientists are people who figure out ways to try to run as many of these things as possible without completely undermining their scientific validity. And those people are highly sought after in Silicon Valley and well compensated. And there are many, many new sort of programs at universities, top-rated universities, in the mathematics and computer science departments that are dedicated solely to the mathematical principles and the practice of what is essentially, split testing.
Cool. Anybody else have a question? You can feel free to unmute.